more passenger meltdowns over airport pat-downs, and calls for changes in the new screening system. And now President Obama has spoken about the controversy for the first time.
And I understand people's frustrations, and what I've said to the TSA is that you have to constantly refine and measure whether what we're doing is the only way to assure the American people's safety. And you also have to think through, are there ways of doing it that are less intrusive?
So just how bad will these new security procedures really make things at the airports? Jeremy Hubbard has a reality check from LaGuardia Airport this morning. Good morning, Jeremy.
Good morning, John. There's been so much hysteria over this new security. Passengers are probably feeling more fearful than festive headed into this busy holiday travel week. But despite what you've been seeing and reading, the reality is for most of us, this new security won't even be much of an issue.
The unease is easy to understand, from the scanners that perform a virtual strip search to the pat-downs that leave passengers feeling defiled. But this morning, a reality check.
The majority of us are not going to experience that over Thanksgiving weekend.
It's simple math. There are 385 of the new full-body scanners at airports across the country, but there are 2,100 total security lanes. That means more than 80% of security lanes won't have the machines or the intrusive pat-downs.
Most people are going to go through business as usual, the metal detector that we've all become used to, taking off the shoes, pouring our liquids into the tiny little containers, business as usual for the vast majority of people.
Hoping to clear up confusion and calm nerves over those pat-downs, the head of the TSA released a video message to airports and airlines Saturday, spelling out options.
You have the option to request that the pat-down be conducted in a private room, and you have the option to have that pat-down witnessed by a person of your choice.
There is concern security may be slowed this week by that growing grassroots internet movement encouraging travelers to opt out of full-body scans Wednesday, one of the busiest travel days of the year.
Together, we can replace this government security theater with real security that doesn't trample our dignity, our rights, or our health.
Thousands on Facebook have now vowed to opt out. This man wrote, "We are not the terrorists, so why are we being terrorized?" Some are even selling T-shirts to rally support for their cause. But in the end, many travel analysts doubt the fervor will have much of an effect.
It's unlikely that the average traveler is going to choose to delay themselves getting through security. The truth is, most travelers just want to get to their destination as fast as possible.
Still, it could be part of the perfect storm at the airport this week. You've got the new security measures, you've got those potential passenger protests, and you have 1 million more people flying this Thanksgiving versus last Thanksgiving. So travel analysts say if you don't get to the airport at least 90 minutes before your flight this time, you really could miss your flight. Deanna?
All right, Jeremy, thank you. And joining us now from Orlando, Florida is the incoming Transportation Committee Chairman, Congressman John Mica. He's been a vocal critic of the TSA. Congressman, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
You were one of the authors of the original TSA bill. Back then, you did support the use of full-body scanners. Has your opinion changed on that?
Absolutely not, but it's the way you utilize them. They shouldn't be used for primary screening. They should be limited and targeted to people who pose a risk, a threat, set off an alarm, or on a watch list, not the way it's been implemented.
And how do you determine who would be seen as a threat? A lot of people would view this as stereotyping and profiling.
Well, the first thing is if they set off an alarm. The second thing is we have behavior officers. We set this program up to try to model the Israeli model after we had the Chechen bombers. So those officers can determine by behavior who needs extra screening. And then finally, we have a watch list, which we've had trouble implementing. But if that's done, it can be done right and not inconvenience millions of passengers. We've got to get it right.
And you mentioned the Israeli model, but when you look at the country of Israel, how small it is compared to the U.S., can you really have people there guarding against so many more travelers?
Well, you take the best, you know. I looked at, when we set this up, we took a model of public-private partnerships, and we have that too. And then we took the all-federal. We looked at some of the European models, particularly UK, which has faced some pretty serious threats. But the thing we've got to do is, and I was glad to hear the president come out and speak on this, we've got to refine this and get this right. You know, these folks are still after us, and they haven't given up, and they shift from one mode to another. The diaper bomber, now you see them trying to blow up a cargo carrier over our city. So we've got to stay one step ahead of them. And when we implement things like the pat down or these advanced imaging screening, it's got to be done right. It wasn't done right this way, but we'll get it right.
And Congressman, you've been reaching out to many heads of airports across the country, urging them to opt for private sector companies to come in and replace the TSA. How would that be any different, especially if they still have to follow TSA guidelines and protocols?
Well, again, this is important. When we set the model up, I have both all federal, and then we had 5 initial airports with federal supervision but private screening. That model's worked very well, and I think it needs to be replicated because TSA's grown to a bureaucracy of 67,000 people. I have 3,590 administrative personnel just in Washington, D.C., making over $105,000 on average a person. I never intended it, and Congress, I don't think, wants it that way. And the American taxpayer can't afford that.
And quickly, do you think that we're making a mountain out of a molehill here, given that, as we heard in Jeremy's piece, 80% of passengers won't even have to go through these screenings?
Yep. Well, I think people have to be cooperative. They've had to put up with having their nail clippers and their scissors confiscated. They had to put up with the rule to sit down for 30 minutes. People, wet their pants, and now people are getting their pants groped. But we've got to get this right. Our security and our aviation industry depends, which is so important to our economy, depends on getting it right. And I think we can get it right. We just need to refine it, as I heard the president say.
All right, Congressman Mica, it's going to be a very busy week at the nation's airports. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.